Hi, everyone. What an exciting third party Thursday we're going to have today about the tell tool and about the perceptions of how it works and what it'll do with Patricia Hershberger. And wait, is that her right now? Yes, she's waiting and they're going to join. And Melissa Lindsay from the donor from DCC support. So I'm so glad they'll both be here to join today. And let me get them on right now. We have no requests, so please request joining. This is the part I always have a problem with. Okay, here we go. Okay, and let's get one more on there. I think you should be on any minute. And now we need to get Patricia on. Hi, how are you?
Hello. So glad it worked.
So glad you could. Oh, me too. Now we have to get Patricia on. Let's see where she is. She's not on yet, but okay. I know she'll be here soon.
Oh,
I
I
was
see
just
she just
in touch
joined.
with her a little while ago. She just joined. Okay, great. Okay, Patricia just asked to join, and I will let you in. I know she knows how to do that because we did that before. One second. She should be there soon. And I'm not sure what this means here. Invite. Okay, let me just invite her to join, see if that works better for her. Okay. I just sent you an invitation, Patricia, so hopefully you'll be there in a minute. There you are. Yay. Okay. I have the two of you. I am like so excited. I'm thrilled, and I'm so excited for this Instagram Live today. Another third party Thursday, which we haven't done this on Thursday in a while. So thank you, ladies, very, very much. I know I want to start just letting you introduce yourselves, but it has been like such a joy, honestly, to be able to talk to both of you and meet you, and just to come together on this. I think kind of it gives me the chills because it's such an important topic on how to tell somebody who's donor conceived that they are donor conceived, and it covers the gamut, right? It covers the parent being comfortable with their journey, so that they can be comfortable in telling their child, who is then going to become an adult, their journey. So I don't know, should we start with, could Patricia introduce herself first? And then Melissa, should we do it that way?
Sure.
Only because I spoke to Patricia first about the tell tool, which I'm going to let her describe. And by the way, she's got her PhD. She is in charge of a research department at Chicago, and she's spent like the last, I don't know how many years working specifically in third-party reproduction and donors, something that most people in the world, let alone, the United States has ever done. So it's really an honor to have you join us today.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Lori. I mean, I'm just really thrilled to be here and reaching out to, I hope, many parents and donor conceived people, as well as some children and donors. I hope they're all joining us. And I hope this Instagram Live is beneficial to you. But just a little bit about me and how I got interested in this. I became a nurse years ago, like right out of high school, to really help people. That was my whole mission. And kudos to my parents, really, for instilling that in me. And along the way, I became a labor and delivery nurse, and I just love taking care of my patients. And then I actually continued my education incrementally, and I became a board-certified family nurse practitioner and was offered an opportunity to work at the University of Chicago infertility clinic at the time. This was back in the late 1990s. And so I accepted the position, really was so excited to join that team. And one of my areas of responsibility there as a nurse practitioner was to coordinate the donor egg program at the time. So I became real involved with working with women who were donating their eggs, were coming in, was doing their physical exams, as well as working with the physicians and others with the recipient parents who were
so amazing.
desperate, right, to get pregnant. So so that really spurred my journey. I just fell in love with the parents and the donors and really wanted to help them in their journey. So as things happened, I continued my education, and my early work was really with Susan Klock, a shout out to her, from Northwestern University. She remains a member of my team, and she and I and others have been working with parents, with children, with donors, with, trying to talk to as many individuals as we can, as well as conduct research to really figure out how to help parents in their telling journey.
Wow. What's amazing to me, honestly, is that you've been working this for so many years, well before people even had it a thought in their mind in terms of society or anybody else. So, I think we all owe you a huge appreciation for that. And so, Melissa, do you want to tell a little bit about how you got involved in the support group?
Sure.
And what you're doing, which is incredible.
So I grew up with two parents, a mother and a father, and had no idea that I was donor conceived. I grew up in California, and through some circumstances, I ended up finding out that I was donor conceived. It was a huge surprise to me. My father had passed away when I was 15, so I had 3 boys of my own, so I had spent my whole lifetime looking for connections to my father that I'd lost. And so I had to it was like losing him again, to go through finding out that I wasn't looking for those DNA and genetic connections in my kids. And he's still my dad, but it just changed the dynamic of that for me. And so I kept wishing that I could talk to other donor conceived people when that happened. I actually didn't know the term that I was donor conceived. I didn't even know what to call myself. I spent a lot of time searching on Google. I didn't know where to go. I actually talked to several fertility clinics trying to track down information, like maybe they would know. I can't be the only person looking. So who do I talk with? Where are the support groups? Where are the resources? And I just kept hitting, well, we don't know. Nobody seemed to know where to send me. And so I really was thinking, taking notes more like somebody should make something for donor conceived people. Somebody should create peer support. Somebody should create resources. Somebody, and it was just somebody. Eventually, I had been exposed to peer support groups through other things, including grief recovery and other types of support groups. So I already knew the value of peer-led support groups. And eventually, after a while, I decided to start them. That's really what happened with that. I contacted some other people who had built some resources, including We Are Donor Conceived, to just see like what kind of things were in the works for that. And they have a network of people that are very helpful in supporting each other. I was looking for something that would take that conversation that was in a Facebook group and bring it to a smaller conversation, more one-to-one. So we meet over Zoom. We started the 2 test support groups in February. They filled in 24 hours. I had a wait list and gradually started to work through that wait list. And then in September, launched a website so that people could just register for those support groups. So we just meet. We have people from US, Canada. We had somebody from France, somebody from Spain. And we meet in groups of 6 to 10 to talk about the journey of being donor conceived. I started off thinking it would be a 6 to 8 week group, and people just stayed as long as they needed to. So some people are still here from February. Others are there for a season, and then it feels like something that's a part of their life, but they don't want to meet weekly about it anymore. And there's really a wide variety of timelines and responses in the group. So it's been a really great space for people to be able to meet one-on-one.
Yeah, no, I think it's incredible that you started that, and there's nothing like support and nothing like knowing that you're not alone. And when I got to share with you about the Tell tool that that Patricia's working on, we started talking about how important it is, and especially with the story that you have. Thank you for sharing it. It's a difficult one, on so many different levels. And I'm sorry for the loss of your father.
Thank you.
So when we talked about the Tell tool, we were talking about how important it is for a parent to tell the child their birth story. And I'm just wondering, if there's anything else you want, well, if there's anything else you want to share, and
Sure.
I definitely want Patricia to tell us about the Tell Tool and the study that she's working on right now to help people to tell their story, because it's a hard journey for so many people.
Yeah. A really common theme right now for people who are discovering that they're donor conceived is when they talk to their parents about it, which many of them choose to do. It is like taking digging up a topic and an issue that the person often just meant to push far, far away. So it puts the adult child in an awkward position to have to unearth a lot of hardship, trauma, shame, secrecy, and it's a really uncomfortable dynamic to be the person processing the change, processing this identity discovery, having their world turned upside down, but then also having to walk their parent through these unresolved emotions, which often tend to be grief. We're more aware now of infertility trauma, and there's a lot more resources and support groups for people who are going through fertility struggles, or who have been part of groups that have been marginalized and their journey to becoming a parent has been filled with judgment or secrecy or shame. And so when those things are not resolved, that puts the adult child in a role to have to walk the parent through it, which
it's very
puts them in a really, really hard situation. And so I think when parents can go through that journey at the appropriate stage of their own journey in parenting, so they're working through those things as they have their child and as they go through the process, so that by the time their child is ready to ask questions and explore at the different stages of development and identity, that a parent isn't being surprised by those questions. They've worked through things and they're not so triggered by those questions. I think it's very hard for a parent to watch their child hurt. It doesn't matter if it's when they're 3 or when they're 30 or when they're 50. Parents don't generally want to see their children hurt. But delaying the hurt really doesn't work, to just wait and put it off until they're older, because then you have people in their 40s like me who are talking about something that was really, really difficult for a parent to talk about. So I'm excited about things like the Tell Tool that help equip a parent to have a hard conversation or give them resources to not make it so scary to deal with the things that they feel about it and process as a parent, so that they're not asking their adult child to parent them later on and walk them through it.
Yeah. So Patricia, could you, and I so agree with you on everything you say, and that's what the focus of a lot of my work is, and the book I wrote is to help the parent embrace their journey and go through the grief and go through the struggle. And so, Patricia, can you tell
the entire community that you're able to share this, and you started your blog, and thank you so much for that. So a little bit about the Tell Tool to really, my team and I really started it. We had been doing research with parents and children, as I mentioned, and donors for a while, really trying to understand what were some of the struggles with parents that were really preventing them from telling, and really trying to go in depth. And Melissa, you mentioned some of those, like, fear, being afraid their child might reject them, being afraid their child might have some stigma. The child might have some issues if they share it with the child, and others know. So we were really trying to understand some of these issues. And along the way, some of my parents and patients were in my office, and they looked at me, and one of them I remember specifically said to me, and she was a recipient mom, and she said, Patricia, I have 2 children, they're 11 years old, and I want to tell them, I know I should tell them, but I just don't know how. And she said, I trust you. Could you please help me? At least get me started, get me going. So really, her and others spurred me and my team to say, you know what, it's time. It's time that we try to get resource out there, even though I know others are doing really important work as well in addressing some of these concerns. But because of those requests from parents that have been helping me, I really wanted to get this Tell tool going. So we've done it as a digital program because we know that many parents, they're busy, they have children. In addition, we like the idea of bringing this information to their home so it's available when they want it, and whenever they can access it. So a little bit about the Tell tool. So we do try to, one of the things we do is try to educate parents about why it's important to tell. Because many parents, if they went through treatment a while back, they don't have as up-to-date information about everything that's going on with genetics or how important it is today for individuals to know about their genetic history. Because we know physicians and nurses base treatment based on this information. So we talk about why it's important. In addition, we try to hone in on some of those emotions that you talked about. Some of my team members, like Susan Klock, who's one of the leading psychologists in our country, she actually agreed to do a little video for free to kind of encourage parents about telling and talk about some of the barriers with your emotions that you're feeling, which are all really normal, I should say, and how parents might overcome them. Then in addition, as parents move through that, we have a module about what are these steps? What are some language that parents can use? And also one of the things that we learned from parents, because I should say, we've been trying to test this prototype for the Tell tool for a while, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from parents already. And one of their suggestions was to really target it for your child's age. So for example, if you have a young child, here's some information that we think is really helpful and some strategies for you. But if you have an older child, say your child is 13 to 16 years and you've never started a conversation, we have some videos for you to watch where parents are demonstrating an initial telling conversation. We have some strategies, some language. We even have some children that volunteered to work with us and kind of help us communicate to parents. And then we kind of finish up because learning from individuals like you, Melissa, our donor conceived people have really helped us with points and tips about things that parents should not do. So we include some of that, as well as parents were really curious in our early testing about how do I respond to my child? Say I talk to my 13-year-old and they react with maybe some anger, or maybe they shut down, or maybe they stomp away. So how do parents react? So we also try to provide parents with information on what to expect. Again, based on your child's age, because we know a 2-year-old, they may just toddle off as you're talking to them, but you have a different response if you're talking to an 11-year-old or a 16-year-old. So that's a little bit, I hope that answers your question, Lori, and I'd love to hear more about Melissa's thoughts on that too.
Yeah. Well, can I ask, just let me ask you a couple of questions about the Tell tool, if you don't mind. And Melissa, I'm sorry, if you could bear with me 1 minute.
Oh, sure.
I'm wondering, how can people access the Tell tool? Like, how would they find it? How would they be able to use it? I think that's important, because I think if recipient parents are listening to this, or if donor conceived people are listening to this, they may want to be able to access it and find out more.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and a shout out, because there may be some parents or others that have been working with me for a while on this. So thank you so much. We actually have lots of volunteers helping me with this project. But right now, our current study, what we're trying to do is we've got a prototype together for the Tell tool that's all online, as I mentioned, but we're wanting even more at this point parents to look at it. So parents that have used either egg, sperm, or embryo donation, or any combination, and have children 1 to 16 years. We're really inviting these individuals to look at the Tell tool prototypes, the stage that it's in, also answer some survey questions that we have, because one of the things we're interested in is, even though we have this prototype, we're wondering, is it helpful for individuals in our LGBTQ population? Is it helpful for single parents? Is it helpful for our heterosexual parents? Is it helpful for parents of color? So we're trying to, we also have some survey questions to try to ask parents kind of about their backgrounds. So then we can also look at when parents provide feedback to us about what they liked about it, what they didn't like. We can look at that data and then move the prototype forward from there. So I maybe give you a kind of a long answer. The best way to go to it, we actually have a website that is tell-tool.com. It's TELL-tool.com. And there's information about the study there, and we keep that kind of updated with our study information. Thanks, Lori. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, not at all. I think it's important for people to know how to access it because, Melissa, your story is so touching and heartfelt, and to find out later in life, I know Patricia said this, the philosophy years ago was not to tell. Mm-hmm. And now we have a generation of children who will be growing up to be donor conceived adults. And now the philosophy is to tell us from the day they're born.
Well, and it is, I would say in some circles, it's considered now the current philosophy, but that isn't practically what's happening in clinics even today. It's still often recommended, but you can do what you want and it's up to you. And then even if there aren't resources to help the parents, then it doesn't really have that emphasis as it would in other things where here's a recommendation and here's where you can sign up for help. We recommend breastfeeding. Here's all the resources to help you through breastfeeding. And if you choose not to breastfeed, and if you don't want to breastfeed or not able, here are some resources for adequate nutrition for your child. And so a parent would be fully equipped on the range for caring for their child's early feeding needs on a very broad spectrum of choices. And we just don't have that same equipment or same resources available to equip parents for even something that's recommended. So it doesn't have quite the and many clinics actually don't mention it at all, even though maybe some of us would assume that that's the current practice. I personally have sat in on calls as a prospective parent when there's a Zoom available, and it's just not even mentioned at all. Same thing for donors. And that would be a question I would ask. This is a great resource that's in development for parents.
I would love to be able to, I know this is a little sidetrack, but boy, would I love to know those clinics, right? Because this initiative I'm working on, which is how we even came to be together in certain ways, like not exactly this topic, but to normalize third-party reproduction. The word normalize is like, it should be normal that it's asked. It should be normal that it's on a form. It should be normal that we all talk about it. And so this effort that I started came out of the work I do with people, moms actually, mostly, who were intended parents and their struggle and their journey. And so we need the medical community to come on board, and it is imperative. And I can't encourage people enough to use their voices and advocate for it. If they're not sure how, I have resources on my website about how to do that. I'm not trying to sell my website, but and you have resources, and there's things out there now. So now it's just getting the word out. And Patricia's Tell Tool, I think, is fantastic. I don't see any downside to it, which is a hard thing to say about things because usually you see a downside, but I don't, because it's just about empowering the parent to tell the child how they were conceived in their birth story. And that to me is all good. So I'm sorry, Patricia, but I just, I believe that wholeheartedly.
I just wanted to add that I think a resource like this could easily be adapted. So I'll plug it now for the donor to have a similar conversation with their family members, because that's the other place that people go to clinics, they donate, they're often, some clinics do better screening than others. Some have more implications training than others, but a lot of people, they go through the full donation cycle and do not understand that genetically these are genetically going to show up as their sons or daughters on a DNA test at some point. Like they truly think they're donating blood or stem cells. It's
Right.
talked about in terms of tissue, and that, so they think of it like, you know, not actually being connected to them later. And so those people are then surprised later on when Aunt so-and-so calls them because they took a 23andMe test and someone showed up as a second cousin, and they did a little digging, and now they find out that, you know, their nephew or niece donated eggs or sperm. So people are not equipped right now to tell that to their partners when if they maybe donate when they're 25 and then they have a partner later on. How do they explain to their partner that they donated 5 years ago or 10 years ago? It puts, again, the donor conceived person in a really awkward position, because now they don't know if they connect to a sibling on an ancestry test, and they have to be the one to tell, oh, your mother donated eggs, or your father donated sperm, or both donated embryos. And so it's a full sibling, and nobody ever had a conversation with their own family members. So I think it's very similar. The difference would just be the time, like because of the frozen, it could be offspring for years and years and years.
Yeah, you know what I
Different.
find challenging, Melissa, and I don't know what you think, Patricia, but what I find challenging is there's so many pieces to this, right? And we all want to be on the same path. We all want this to be open and transparent. And then what happens is you get involved in different communities, whether it be a medical clinic or whether it be a religious community or somebody who just doesn't want to say anything. And it's how do you allow that person to feel comfortable? So how do you let them know that they're not alone? How do you have the support groups available? How do you have all the systems in place so that it's easily accessible? And I think that pieces are now coming up and coming together, but I don't know how easily accessible they are and how everybody can just hook into them. So I'm so thrilled that you're putting together this support group because it's so needed, right? And the resources that you pull on, and even just connect the way you connected with me. I mean, I was so thrilled because it opens up another avenue of conversation. And we were even talking about how we could work together, because I'm pulling together a survey now to try and substantiate the importance of changing the word other to donor and adoption so that the medical history can then be explored at the point of medical treatment, and also allow Sally or Joe or whoever sitting, filling out the form themselves to see that this is a normal way to be conceived. So I think,
and it's part of the tell tool to
yes,
educate
thank you.
a
I was going
parent
right
to
there.
say, this
Right.
is significant information. It didn't stop at conception.
No.
Yes.
This information is significant because it will follow your pediatrician.
Yes.
Parents, I can't tell you how many participants in our groups have had a very long medical struggle, and parents have shared their own medical history and allowed the doctor to be stumped about why this person is struggling with a certain medical thing, and never sharing that there's unknown medical history. So or there are people in the groups who have been tested repeatedly or monitored for a medical condition that their father has, not knowing, because nobody in the equation was discussing the fact that the father wasn't the genetic father. And so someone's being monitored for a cardiac condition that's, highly likely to have been inherited, and it turns out they're not even genetically related. And that's
Melissa, please ask him to fill out the survey so I can substantiate this to the medical associations. That survey is going live tomorrow, I believe, because what happens is, in order to create change, you need to substantiate. And that's the hard part. So if we could substantiate with real life stories, and I was talking to somebody who was donor conceived, and both parents were physicians. And the funny thing is, she said they totally forgot to mention that she was a sperm donor baby, right? And conceived that way. And she had gastric problems and nobody had them, but it was from the sperm donor. And both parents, both physicians forgot to mention it.
You know, if I could just add too, this is really great. And I want to second what Melissa had said, that when we were designing the TEL tool, I absolutely wanted to design this for donors as well. But our current funders wanted us to stay, they were like, figure it out for parents first, Patricia. See what parents say, see if they like it, see if it's helpful. Then if it is, you can move to the donors, as well as I would love to do this in Spanish. And you know, that's something for individuals who speak Spanish. So there's really a wealth of opportunities here. But I also want to say too, I fell in love with Lori because she is on her mission to have clinicians such as myself and others ask parents, or ask, you know, what is your birth story? You know, do you know it? Or if you are a parent, have you told these individuals yet? And to me, that's really the question that I want clinicians to be asking. And then also follow up, where are you on your telling journey? So in checking in with parents, because we know it's so important to get that first telling conversation going. But then what I've heard from others and what we see in the literature and in the scientific data is that parents also need to continue these conversations throughout the individual's life, and also continue them in a way that as their child grows, the child feels very comfortable coming to the parent. And to the parents listening out there, parents, that's what you want. You want your child coming to you for those intimate conversations. At least as a starting point. That's not to say that they may not seek information elsewhere and talk to their peers or join Melissa's group in the future. But as a parent, as long as you're alive, you're going to want your children to come to you and have conversations with you that they don't have with others, because that's a very important dynamic, that parent-child relationship.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting because I find that when I work with people in support groups who are conceiving children through donor conception, I ask them to write their own birth story. But then when the baby is born, I ask them to write their own story just to the baby, whether it's a song or a poem or whatever it is. And every night at bedtime, give them this little story about their birth story and then read them their book. And so what that does is it just normalizes it for the child. This is how they're conceived, and they grow up knowing. And what Patricia said is so true, right? When they're a year old, they just kind of know it. When they're 2 and 3, maybe they'll have a question, and then as they get older, they'll have more and more questions. But it won't be that shock. It won't be that, why didn't I know? And you know, we hope that everybody will come along for the ride on this.
Well, just to say too, though, if there's parents out there listening and they have not been able to start that conversation, and their child is 10, 11, you know, up to 16 years, we have some great resources we feel that could really help parents. We have some strategies for how to just start that initial conversation with an adolescent. We have some of the best experts in our country that have helped me put this together. So it's not to say that if you do the TEL tool, we don't want parents to feel pressure. That's not what we want. We really want it to be something that's helpful to parents, and then also have parents join us and others about what's working in the TEL tool, and maybe what we need to change or fix or tailor. And then hopefully in the future we'll have more and more individuals involved.
Yeah, really to empower the parent. Yeah.
And I would say too that there are people who are, of course, afraid to tell their children this, and they're afraid of what it might do to the relationship. And I think everybody that has participated in the groups can understand that. Many are parents themselves, and they know how challenging it is to deliver news that you're not sure how it's going to be received. But the number one thing is, instead of looking backwards to, I wish I would have told earlier, if someone's here is in the position of they have a 13-year-old or they have a 20-year-old or they have a 25, whatever, that they haven't told, it really is important to just look at moving forward and how to tell now, in whatever place they're in life, that if they haven't told before, it's about just how to do it now in the healthiest way that you can. And there are lots of places that we mess up as parents. We are all the time learning, oh, I could have done this a different way. And so it's just about doing the best we can in the moment that we have for the best thing for our child, no matter where they are. So even if it would be ideal to have used some resource, and start, as Lori mentioned, practicing the story, and it's never new information because they've heard it their whole life. That's ideal. But if that's not the case, it's not worth giving up. It's important to start at 15 or at 18 or 30. People, the hardest thing is learning the information from somebody else. Every single person in the group wishes they would have heard it from their parent first instead of finding out from somebody else.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important. And there is support for the parents in being able to tell if the child is past the tell-tool age. And I would encourage them to go to Resolve and look for the therapists on Resolve in your area, because they will be able to help you with that. And look at ASRM. These are two organizations that have trained therapists who specialize in fertility. We really want you to feel empowered. And this is all about empowering the parent and allowing the adult donor conceived person, the donor conceived child, to know their true story, so that we can be sure that everybody is comfortable and not struggling with who they are.
And if I could just add too, even though our Tell Tool is really geared for parents that have children 1 to 16, when I talk to my fellow clinicians around the country, they are definitely seeing an uptick in parents that have adult age children and realize everything that's going on, genetics, for example, 23andMe, as well as the importance, as Melissa mentioned, of just knowing your own health history, how important that is for your child or your adult donor conceived person. So our clinicians are seeing an uptick in parents coming back for some individual counseling. So you would not be alone when you reach out, if that would be a helpful way for you.
Yes, yeah. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share before we end, but I could probably talk to the two of you for hours, because there's such a genuineness and there's such a caring, and I have such admiration, honestly. So I thank you both so much, really.
Thank you for hosting the conversation for us and for the introduction. I'm excited to look at the tool and be a help in any way that I can, giving the donor conceived person's perspective. I feel it's funny because I have some accountability knowing that my own members will be in this group. And I just want to say, regarding reaching out to a mental health professional, it is tricky right now for donor conceived people. So while I totally agree that parents should reach out and talk to a mental health professional, I would say it's still a circumstance where if you're looking for a reason not to tell, you can still find plenty of mental health professionals within both places that you mentioned who would just encourage you not to tell. It's sad, but it's true. And I see it on this side, on the donor conception side.
I have to agree
including
with you.
people.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Melissa. I absolutely agree with you.
So you have to check your own motives, even in looking for a mental health professional.
Yes, I agree with you.
We have, I'm helping to add names to a resource, with the MPE collective, which is a counseling collective of people trained in this specific topic, because misattributed parentage, whether it's donor conception or adoption or something else, does have a unique element to it. And I hope there's more awareness for mental health professionals. But right now, you can still find plenty to say, it doesn't matter. As long as you love them, it's fine. You don't need to tell them. So proceed with caution on that. And I do hope that there is better training for mental health professionals in the future.
Well, yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. I'd like to add a caveat to it,
Sure.
and I'd like to hear what you have to say. I think when most people seek help, the therapist goes to where the person is at. And if the person is, I can't tell, but I want to, but I really can't, and they're struggling, I would hope that the therapist would help them through that journey of initially engaging in their struggle not to tell, and then bring them along that path to be able to. Because if somebody presents to a therapist, it's because they're struggling with the fact that they haven't told. That's my perception on it. I don't know, Patricia, if you think differently. But so we do want to help engage those therapists to feel empowered that when somebody presents with this question or this situation, to realize that they're struggling with it. And if it's a struggle, it's because it's a secret.
I if it's helpful to know, especially to individuals like Melissa and others listening in, as we were developing this prototype, we did have clinicians, many of which are members of the American Society for Reproductive Medicine and others, look at this prototype. And some of the feedback we got from them early on, they were like, oh my gosh, I learned so much. I have like a junior colleague that I work with that's new to the field. It would be so great if she could also take the TEL tool and be educated. So that is definitely also on our radar. So we've talked about, individuals, Spanish speaking, donors, clinicians. So, I ask parents listening if they're able to help us, because right now our funders wanted us to include parents and get more feedback from parents to see if it's helpful and how the TEL tool might need to be changed. But in the future, if all things go according to plan, we do hope to roll some of these initiatives out, and hopefully I'll have further conversations with Melissa, others, clinicians, also teachers, because we know school teachers are
Yes, the school system has to be involved.
Right,
yes.
right, because in grandparents listening, friends, sisters. So I think there are many avenues, and really so grateful for this conversation and having Melissa on board and the work that Lori's doing. It's all of us working together. It's not one of us alone. It's really all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Melissa, that's a wonderful point, and we want to bring everybody along, especially the medical community. And, honestly, both of you, I think it starts at the point of decision to use a donor. And it starts with being comfortable and finding those people who can help you be comfortable with your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you both so much. Anything else before we say goodbye?
If somebody here is in a conversation with somebody who is donor conceived, just encourage them to get support from other donor conceived people to walk along that journey with. And I'm happy to be a resource, but I'm also happy to point them in the direction of other resources for donor conceived people.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you both. I can't wait to talk to you both individually again. And
looking forward to it.
Have a great day.
Okay, thank you so much.
And everybody who's going to listen.
Thanks
We
so
want
much.
your comments. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.